Hello and welcome. You're with World Business Report. I'm Sally Bundock. Also in the programme, G4S reveals its results for the full year. We'll assess how tarnished the company's been since some embarrassing setbacks. But first of all, let's talk about Ukrainian Prime Minister Arseniy Yatsenyuk, who is arriving in Washington today to meet with President Obama. He's called on Western nations to defend Ukraine against Russia, a nation he says is armed to the teeth and has nuclear weapons. Obama will show he supports the new Ukrainian leader, but what can the US and its Western allies actually do to help the near-bankrupt country? Michelle Fleury is in New York for us. Welcome to BBC World News. I'm Naga Manchetti. Here are the headlines. Time to round up the stories making headlines in newspapers around the world. Sally and I'll take a look. Let's start with the Moscow. Cornelia Meyer, CEO of business consultancy MRL Corporation, is with us. Good morning.
Morning,
Cornelia. Nice to see you. Now, we've got to talk about Ukraine because the referendum is due on Crimea. The West is warning Russia now of more sanctions. It seems that there's a butting of heads. And we know how we're viewing it this side of Europe, but you've been on the continent, haven't you? And you've been getting a different nuance about
get a different nuance. It's the debate is slightly more nuanced. If you look at when you have to debate on the continent, I mean, they're all scared. They say, oh, look, we had the First World War over something rather small, so we cannot make this, we cannot turn this into. What will Europe do? What will the world do? Russia can talk tough on sanctions. Europe's economies are so interlinked with the Russian economy. 35% of German gas imports come from Russia. Some countries like Bulgaria, Romania are so interdependent, so it's really tough. On the other side, what can Russia do? Because 80% of electricity comes from the Ukraine of the Crimean and 80% of the water, so it's quite complex. I'm just not so sure that sanctions will do the trick.
Are you surprised that you've got the French Foreign Minister, Laurent Fabius, saying that these could happen as early as next week, sanctions, they could be imposed?
Absolutely, but what will they do? They'll do some more visa sanctions. What sanctions will they do? Will they do sanctions that really bite? And when you look at sanctions...
Can they afford to do sanctions that really bite, diplomatically?
Economically they can't. Diplomatically they probably can. And sanctions only work when you can get the middle classes of a country behind you. And could you do that in Russia? You know, when you look at which sanctions worked, the ones against Yugoslavia, the former Yugoslavia, worked. But sanctions against Iraq didn't work because you couldn't get the middle classes behind them.
Now let's have a look at the Daily Telegraph, and it's devoting quite a bit of its front page to a story about interest rates.
Interest rates will rise because we've lost that trick in our toolbox of being able to go down with interest rates because they're so low. So they need to come up for the next economic crisis because you know what? It will come.
What about what he had to say about the Bank of England's role when it comes to foreign exchange markets and that kind of thing?
I think he was right. I mean, he said, look, we have absolute integrity of the Bank of England. I think we, as British people, can all be very proud of the Bank of England and its integrity. Should they have more investigations earlier? Maybe, but then, you know, hindsight is always 20/20.
Let's talk about UniCredit. I know you've mentioned this in World Business Report. It's announcing job losses as well as a massive loss.
Undertaken a review, and this has come out under that review. And there's certainly still quite a few banks on the southern rim that have a problem because the economies were so bad. But also, you might have seen yesterday that the German banks have gone, the German regulators have gone to the ECB saying, please exclude mortgages in your banking review. So that means we have, especially in the smaller regional banks which do a lot of mortgages in Germany, we probably have quite a few skeletons that are buried there.
And what impact will those skeletons have? Because, I mean, this announcement from UniCredit came when the European Central Bank said we're going to dig deeper into banks' books to find out how strong they are or not, as the case may be, or how exposed they are to risky debt. Are the skeletons going to harm us again? Are we going to see real issues for the Eurozone?
It's not a good time to own European bank stocks.
Okay. Short answer there. Let's talk about, in the UK, there is the Cooperative Group. Now, the Cooperative Group has gone through
hellish times. I think that is fair.
There as a steady place to, you know, provide people with food, with credit, and it's gone into trouble. But I have very little sympathy with Mr. Sutherland, the outgoing CEO, who says it's ungovernable. Yes, it's difficult to govern, but if you run something like a cooperative, which is consensus built, which is less profit driven, you probably have to run it. It's like running a chamber of commerce. You have to run it differently from a normal bank.
The flip side to that, though, is that people expect it to behave as a bank. And so for when it looks at the board level, when it looks at executives, they should be tied to the certain regulations that other banks are expected to be adhered to. And this is what this man said he was trying to do.
Yes, but he's absolutely right in trying to do that. But I think it's less the what he was trying to do and more the how he was trying to do it.
Right, now let's talk about another big figure here in this country, Bob Crow, who was the head of the RMT union for many years. And he died suddenly yesterday, a shock to all of us, I would say, not something...
We've been agreeing with him, but he surely added colour to what is Britain.
Interesting, the tributes that are coming out from Boris Johnson, Mayor of London, Ken Livingstone, former Mayor of London, both from completely different sides of the political spectrum, but both, as you say, absolute leader.
You know, and you know, he was who he was, and I think this sort of authenticity is in the end which will win everybody over.
You're very excited about Mr. Berners-Lee calling for a web Magna Carta. You're going to have to explain what he wants.
Well, he wants clear rule
control. Protection of its independence.
It's protection because the one thing that the web has, it's become a truly global public good, the freedom of the web. So he wants to protect that. And when you see certain countries, when the going gets tough, saying, okay, we will not give access, we will shut down YouTube, or the government of China really controlling the web, I think, you know, it's a good thing.
It's a good thing. Well, he always wanted it to be for everyone, didn't he?
And so it should.
So it should be. Oh, Cornelia, lovely having you with us. Thank you very much. Cornelia Meyer there from MRL. Sally and I see you very soon.
Have a really good day.